Yeah. Wow. 40 is a good temperature then.
It's a heat wave.
Because I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, that's so cold.
No, I could have walked outside in my shorts today. It was like spring, yay!
See, no, I'd be wearing like a scarf, a hat, and all.
Perspective, right?
It
Perspective.
is, it's all perspective. I don't know why it keeps on adding you. There you are. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with Facebook. I couldn't get to go through.
It was me. It was telling me I had to rotate my phone and I wasn't complying. I was looking at it going,
Oh.
wait, why rotate my phone? But here I Good morning.
I love it. I'm like, what am I doing wrong? I always assume it's my fault.
It was me. Pay attention to what the instructions are, Ani.
I love it. How are you this morning?
Oh, I'm so good. It's 40 degrees here, and it's been like 8, 2, 0, and it feels like spring. It's just a nice reprieve from the frigid cold.
Yeah. Wow. 40 is a good temperature then.
It's a heat wave.
Because I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, that's so cold.
No, I could have walked outside in my shorts today. It was like spring, yay!
See, no, I'd be wearing like a scarf, a hat, and all.
Perspective, right? Perspective.
It's all perspective. How funny. I forgot, where are you at?
Near Burlington, Vermont.
Okay, yeah, that would be a huge. Arizona's a big difference when it comes to.
Big difference.
Yeah, when you came out last, it was a lot warmer.
Yeah. Yeah. I decided not to wear my winter hat right now for this live feed, but like literally Vermonters walk around in their winter hats for 6 months out of the year. Like it's standard equipment.
Well, it makes it easy to not have to do your hair in the morning. That's awesome. Well, I know today you and I had kind of had a brief conversation yesterday about having a talk about parenting because we both happen to be parents.
Yeah.
And I know it's kind of an offshoot from, your actual book, and I did want to share it with everyone a little bit about you. Do you want to tell them a little bit about your book, and then we'll go off into our little parenting thing?
Yeah, sure. My book is Find Your Soul's Agenda, and it's purpose work, and it's different than any purpose work out there because it really helps you to understand your purpose, not just from like the bright and shiny positive side of how you'd love to experience life, but the side of life and how it actually shows up a lot, especially when we're choosing to grow. We're going to experience life on two sides. We live in a world of duality. And so the book really talks about that. And one of the questions I'm asked all the time is, can I help my children find their soul's agenda? And the answer is no. It's not appropriate until a person is fully developed from a neurological standpoint and from a soul standpoint. There's a time in development around the age of 21 when the soul is incarnated enough to be able to then look at what's happened in the past and derive some insight from that. So I make it a point to talk to parents about how important it is for them to find their own soul's agenda and do their own work so that they can influence their children. It's not about helping their children to develop their purpose. It's about really stepping into your full purpose as a parent and living unapologetically as who you are so that your children can learn from you in that way.
Yeah, I get that. It's kind of funny because you and I kind of talk about the same thing, like having the child have their own independent life and goals and aspirations. You don't live through your child. So I agree with you. And I do think you're right. Actions over time build us understanding of what our life is all about and where we're going and who we are. So it takes I almost think of like an incubation period where you're literally learning all those things. And I would think, yeah, around 21, that makes a lot of sense when we start to kind of cut the cord and go off
Yeah.
and find our purpose.
Yeah.
So very cool. I did
Yeah.
read a little bit of your book. I haven't finished it yet. I've got, I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't finish it, but I do love it. It's been really fun, really interesting because I see
Thanks.
how I individually did steps to get to where I am, which is very much in rhythm with what you were showing. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah,
It's very
good.
fun.
Oh, that's great. When you find your soul agenda statement, let me know. I'd just love to know everybody's
Absolutely.
thing.
I love that. So you have a very interesting family dynamic. Do you want to share?
Yes, sure.
No,
It's like
really?
it's
It's a beautiful story. I think,
yeah,
so often people really think of, I experienced divorce and, the transitional periods are really rough. And the way you guys found your path is just the coolest thing ever. So I think it's kind
yeah.
of a unique experience.
Yeah, it is really unique and it's provided. I kind of see my life as a big experiment. And so the experiment continues with this family because we're able to see, especially with the children, how the children show up in two different households. So what the deal is
Oh, yeah.
the very short story is that it appears that, and we kind of did, that our families swapped. So my now husband, um,
Follow the
I'm with
instructions.
him. Follow the family wreath. It's not a family tree. It's a family wreath.
It's a
My ex.
family.
Never in a million years would I would have guessed this for my life. My ex-husband is with my current husband's ex-wife. So it appears that we swapped. So we
Literally.
together, literally. So we raise our combined 3 children in 2 homes. The 4 of us. So 4
It is
adults, 3
really a
kids, 2
tribal
homes.
experience. It's really a tribal experience in your family, wouldn't you say? I mean, literally, you guys have
Yeah.
like the family really didn't change. The individual spouses swapped spaces, but you
Yeah.
literally kept your family unit, which is very unique
It
together.
is. Yeah,
It's amazing.
our kids were really good friends before this happened, so much so that the two, they're now 13. We were joking with them just this past weekend. It was really funny. The two older children, when they were 5, we got called into preschool because they were playing mommy and daddy. They were best friends in preschool. Yeah. And then
That's awesome.
yeah,
That's
so we were
great.
just joking with them. They're 13 now. We were like, we got called in because you were playing mommy and daddy when you were in preschool, and they're going, oh, gross. I mean, now they're sister and brother. So yeah, so that's the constellation of our family. And just to give you a picture of what it looks like on an everyday basis, yesterday we were at a basketball game. My ex-husband is the coach of the boys basketball team. My stepson is on the team, and my husband is assistant coaching. So
Yeah,
my
yeah,
my current husband's ex-wife, who is the stepmom of my children, and I were sitting on the benches cheering our children playing the game. Like
yeah.
that's who we are in the
It's
world.
it's really not. Yeah, I mean, it sounds interesting and so complicated, but isn't that kind of the goal? Is having this really cool united front to support the kids and having a really clear voice of their future.
Yeah.
So it's actually perfect, but it is funny. It is a very cool
Yeah.
story, very
Yeah.
unique, and definitely one for Hollywood.
That's what I've been hearing recently. You have got to write that book or it sounds like a reality TV show. And
It
yes.
does. Yes. So does
Yeah.
it, do you, okay, so my family is still like my ex is not remarried. I have not remarried. The kids do the traditional, weekend, house to house. They definitely have two totally different parental experiences. Their father parents totally different than I do. And they have a totally
Yeah.
different relationship, rightly so. So it's kind of interesting to see. I have more of the traditional breakup kind of marriage scenario
Right.
where you have
Right.
this really cool, unique experience. I thought, how fun would this be to kind of share with people
Yeah.
how to be more neutral parents and yet supportive and to let children have a voice for themselves and let them
Yes.
be. It's really unique. I found with my personal parenting skills, my kids will come to me with certain issues, just like a traditional, they'll go to dad for one thing and mom for another. But it's really interesting how watching the minimized voice in one experience versus an expressed voice. I don't know if you get to see that dynamic because you guys are kind of all on the same page more so, but it is really wild to watch the expressions and the behaviors, and it's really an interesting part of divorce that you don't probably get to experience when you're still married, I would think.
Yeah.
I know it's not as loud, I should say. The polarity is not as loud. So it's really an interesting dynamic, I would think.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, and I think it would be helpful also to have an example. Do you have an example of how that's happened recently for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, right now, I was just talking about this last week. My children are going off and living on their own, or not yet. They're working on getting off on their own. They're adults. And, what happened to me is I actually was all of a sudden my house was being sold. I was renting. So I had 2 weeks to move out of my house, which I'd been in for 5 years. So it was quite a riff. And so my boys that were living with me were going to live on their own, weren't ready yet. So they moved in with their father. And it was kind of an interesting experience how when the boys were living with me, it was, they got to be on their own. They got to, they're pushing. He was pushing and, very like, you're not being a good parent, and it was really fascinating. Now that they're living with him, it's kind of funny because he's totally doing, like, oh, they'll move out when they're ready. And I wasn't passive when they were living with me, but I was very much like, so what's our plan? Where's the steps? What are we going to do? Very strategic. Yeah. And it's kind of funny that now that this paradigm has shifted, he's enjoying them, which I totally get, and I think they should have that time together. But there's no encouragement of them being independent thinkers or independent, going on their own. So I actually had to pull my ex aside and said, okay, no offense, but we need to kind of like hurry up the process. It's like, we need to kind of like get them ready. And it's really been interesting that, that wanting to be their friend. I think a lot of, and I'm not bashing my ex by all means, I'm not. Just realizing how much parents try to be their kids' friends versus really create a dynamic of example and structure for them to go independent, which is really interesting. So I don't know if you can.
I totally relate to that. I think that we're in this interesting time where there's so many conveniences. Life, used to be hard, right? And so we've been having this conversation with our children recently where for their grandparents, life actually was hard. And then for us, we were raised by people who lived life is hard. But now for our kids, that life is very convenient. And so I think that they're part of the risk, I almost hate using that word, but the risk is that life is pretty comfortable for the most part if we don't get caught in our internal drama of it all. So what do we really want rather than looking at what we need? What do we really want? And one of the things that I want is for my children to feel a sense of empowerment that they can do for themselves and they can live on their own. And I think it really is that sense of empowerment. So could they, live with us for a long time? Could we all support, that? Probably there's enough abundance around. But do I want that for them? And do I want that for me? And the answer for me as I look forward is no. I'm looking forward to the independence myself. I'm looking forward to their independence and their empowerment. So I think it's really an interesting time to have that conversation about friend versus, the parent and where your energy is in terms of being a parent, because let's face it, life is easier than it's ever been. And they're not mowing the fields or whatever now. We don't need them to work on the farm and stick around.
No gardening to do?
No,
you're right.
It's a different time, and yet we haven't completely caught up with that difference in our own evolution of our consciousness, I don't think.
I think that's a really great point. Everything's at push button technology. And I mean, money nowadays comes through, literally, do you remember when you had to actually go to the bank to find out your bank balance? I mean, you had to balance your bank account.
Right.
Nobody balances their bank account. I mean, that concept is like just deleted. which is making us all live more present, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're not planning for the future, we're not preparing children for success. And I'm watching, even if we talk about finances, I'm watching my children, and the way they prepare themselves financially is totally different.
Yeah.
I mean, I sat down and was like, okay, you want a car, you want an apartment, you want this. Okay, what does that look like?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Well, you got to save up for those things,
Right.
We've been saving. I've taught you about savings. We know about savings. This is a weird experience that we're having this as an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, my children, they're in their 20s. They're like 20. Well, actually, I shouldn't say 20s. He's 19, and my oldest is 21. So they're like literally stumbling around, finding that sense of, buying something and the consequences for purchasing something that, the ramifications for those choices, which sounds silly at this point to be having that experience, because you would think that as a child, they would have learned that. Well, in our dynamic, and I'm not bashing, I swear I'm not bashing, we definitely had the Disney dad scenario where kids would call up and say, hey, Dad, I want this. He'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
Bless his heart. I know he wanted to provide and wanted good things for them, but it had a bit of a delayed lesson in the experience. And I think that by not earning it, you just got that entitled, call
Absolutely.
dad and get. And, bless his heart, doing, the best he could to do what he wanted to do as his role as a parent. It definitely had some interesting side effects that I learned. And I was the opposite. I was like, well, if you do these things, then I'll do that. I'm sure there's resentment about that. So, there's no right way of parenting one way, but I definitely see, behavioral transitions as time went on.
Tamber, I think a lot of people can relate to what you're talking about. So I'll relate with us. It wasn't that we had Disney dad, but we have grandparents.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, a lot of grandparents. So the interesting thing is, I think that a lot of kids in our children's generation have this sense that the abundance is just going to be there. And from a wealth consciousness standpoint, that's really great. Like, it's really wonderful to be in this place where we know the abundance is going to show up, because it does show up. That faith in abundance is like really it's beautiful. It's one of the things I think probably both of us really work with our clients on, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Knowing the abundance is there, but for their generation, they actually, like, the abundance actually is there, but we're raising them and we're like, what? Yeah. I've been having conversations with my kids for years now about how they have to save up for a car. You got to save up for a car. I'm not buying a car, blah, blah, blah. And finally, one of the 13-year-olds was like, a car's just going to show up. Like, that's what happens for us. And
wow,
they're right. I can't negate that they're right. I don't know if it's going to be our car is old and they get that, or the grandparents give them a car. Like, I don't know, but they're right. A car is going to show up for them. So that's a whole new paradigm for me as a parent. And I think that's kind of, how we entered into this conversation too, with this enthusiasm for this topic. Like, there's some different rules now, because we are as a people different, and yet we have to kind of catch up with that. It's really wild.
It is. It's fascinating. They talk about enablement and feeling entitled. I love that word, entitlement.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating because we truly did create that. I almost think because of the computer era and the way everything instant, access to information, instant access to our needs being met, it did kind of pull forward this entitled behavior. And the sense of value behind that does really change. It's not that they have like this, I've earned it, I worked hard for it, and have this value or sense of pride with it. It's like, treat it, I treat my car like a trash can, and, I'll just get a new one. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
So I think it's really a cool, I think too that, being a single parent, I don't know, being a single parent, I struggled financially. I had a family of 3, and I was, providing for them as well as myself.
Yeah.
It was 4 jobs to make things happen, working crazy hours. I still, to this day, I'm teased for being a workaholic. I don't know if I'm a workaholic as much as I am very passionate about what I'm doing these days.
Yeah.
But it's more the fact that, I've just learned to persevere in the hard times because I know the reward is worth it.
Yeah.
So I sometimes wonder, do our kids have that in tenacity? Do they have that endurance,
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah.
I think some do.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've been doing our clientele really spans the ages of, it's like Gen X boomers, 50s really, and then
Yeah.
millennials. We have this interesting spread.
Yeah.
Do you too?
Yeah.
It's
My youngest
really
client is
interesting.
5, and my oldest client has been, it was 98.
Crazy. Yeah. So we
It's been
span
a huge
these
spread.
generational things. It really is fascinating. And one of the
Yeah.
things that we see really as a trend in the boomers and the millennials is this thing about making a difference. And so the millennials, as they're coming in, are kind of like, moving around like this because they're kind of like swimming around through this idea of entitlement and then coming into their own self-responsibility, but it not needing to be responsibility like big, hard, ugly responsibility. And it's really interesting to see there. I was just looking at some statistics. The millennials, more than any generation, have this like need to make a difference.
Yes.
This is really, really fascinating.
Don't you think that has to do with the fact that they're more heartfelt generation? I mean, we've got the thinkers and we got the feelers, and I feel like this generation feels a need to have purpose, which is totally looks different than the doing process, because the doing is more analytical, right?
Yeah.
So I do see the difference in that dynamic as well. I watch, kids be emotionally more invested and want something and get very like, one of my amazing clients, she's an overachiever. She's dynamic, but she longs for connection. But her head is just, she's super brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's just a fascinating polarity. And so working with her for me is like, oh my gosh, how cool to watch her evolve her strength and those skills of connection by feeling. It is amazing. I mean, she's definitely a heartfelt child, but she's got the analytical side as well.
Yeah. And so we're being challenged to raise these kids who have I think like coming in as they already have an evolved emotional intelligence, right? And we're
absolutely
kind of like figuring that out as I think it takes some of the pressure off from needing to know everything as a parent and being a little bit more in the process, right? Because there's
absolutely. I've always considered myself not to be the parent. Like, I know this sounds terrible. I don't consider myself to be the knower of all. I'm more of like an experience and like you said, experimenting with the kids, trying new things, looking at different angles, and being open with the fact that I may not really have the answer to that, but I'm willing to figure it out with you. Really kind of aligned with your child versus, and I'm not a friend, no way, but I'm more aligned with helping be in the trenches with them and recognize that the fear is there and the angst and the concern. At the same time, it's really be like, okay, since I'm outside the experience, I can give you a different perspective, or I've experienced these things, so would you like me to share with you my perspective?
Yeah.
Because it does bridge the gap.
What I'm hearing you say is like it's time for a new definition of what it means to be parent. Because I think that I totally heard this thing about be a parent, not a friend. And so that only works if you really understand what it means to be a parent, because it for you, like for each of us, does it mean being this person who knows everything? Or does it not? I mean, for me, I totally resonate with the definition that you're bringing about being a parent. It's like the being in alignment. When you said that, how can I be in alignment with my kids? And I think, for the people who are watching, I'd love to just to see what people have to say about that. Like put comments in about what you think about that. I think it's super powerful. Do you agree with that? Because I think being a parent, for me, if I wanted to define it for myself, being in alignment with my children, wow, that's a really cool definition.
Right? Wouldn't it be fun to see what it's like to be in the experience with them versus, puppeteering? We got the helicopter parents. We've got, all these funny names for the way we see parents behave. And a lot of my helicopter parents, they just don't understand their role isn't to be like the bubble around their child. They don't realize that, they're blocking growth. They're blocking potential. So if you can create more space for your child and be more like a net, so when they're falling, you catch them, it's a little bit better. And you are giving them a chance to experience life and feel the possibility and understand how to bridge the confusion to conclusion, how to create, it's really, I feel like we're just kind of guides and not necessarily somebody who's supposed to tell, you know? It's like you're along with them on the journey.
Yeah.
So I find a lot of parents struggle with, you know, well, you know, if I buy them that car, they better be home by curfew. Well, yeah, that's the agreement to having the car. But are you controlling them, or are they feeling controlled because you didn't present it as agreement between two people?
Yes.
You're alone. And a lot of people get messed up on this. You know, they're like, well, you know, your phone is mine, and, you know, it's control. But it's an agreement. It really is. When you give someone a gift that has strings attached, because when you give a cell phone, it has strings. I'm sorry, It's not a gift. You are saying you may use this phone according to these rules. Do you agree? Yes.
Yes.
Take the phone. Agreement done.
Yes.
But we don't do those conversations. We go, oh, here, happy birthday.
Right. And then we're not clear about the guidelines in the agreement. Yeah. Like actually have a conversation.
We literally create confusion instead of clarity. And we minimize children by telling them they don't have a right to the feelings that they're feeling because we gifted them things. What? What?
Yeah.
I see a lot of like unclear spaces because a parent may not know what they're conveying, what information they're giving, and they don't understand the resentment their child has, and they perceive it as, you know, entitlement. But it's not. It's not entitled. It's miscommunications. It's misunderstandings. Yes. And those missed opportunities literally create a rip in a relationship.
Yes.
In any relationship.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Communication, right?
Communication, clarity, clarity.
Yeah.
Wow. So simple. I mean, that's the paradox. It's really so simple and can be so challenging. So challenging.
So did you get to look at that? Did I send it to you? I think I forgot to send it to you. So my bad.
Got it.
That law. I'm like, oh, I was supposed to send you something. Darn it. I'm owning it.
I will look at it.
It was that law that in Illinois about parental bullying, which I don't think, let me be very clear on this, I don't believe in control or manipulation at all. You can tell. But that law about parental bullying is so intense. It's like you can actually, I think that just creates more confusion personally. I think it's very difficult to enforce or to not take, because a child feeling victimized could be very easily misinterpreted. I should really kind of bring everyone up to speed on the law. Basically, you can sue a child can sue their parent for bullying. And in that state, they have a right to collect when they turn 18. So the money actually gets paid and put into an account, and eventually the child gets the money. I find it very interesting that now we're putting this fear of parenting into the dynamic. It's like, it's good a child has a voice. I'm all for children having a voice, but I'm not for this belief that we should control the dynamic to this level. I think that we should educate. And so I feel like it's kind of, personally, I feel like it's kind of a scary law because it can be very easily manipulated.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I think you just said something really powerful there. Educate versus control.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean,
collaborate, you think of, I feel like the biggest part of our education hole that we have, and I talk about this in a religious aspect as well as educational, because it really education is see a problem, think get through to a solution. If it can't find a solution, you chuck it. It's not yours,
Right.
It's not teaching you what I call contemplation, where the mind is observing and learning from the experience. Yep. And not making it right, wrong, good, or bad, but just learning, that step back and observe and understand before you make right, wrong, good, or bad. Because quite often we're reactive. We're like taking information from the past and going, this is what I want, this is what I need, Anyway, yep. I'm going off on a tangent.
Yeah, it's a valid tangent, because then we're coming from a place of unconsciousness and we're just dragging in our patterns.
We come from that dwelling state, right? We focus so much on the resistance and what's not working, or maybe the obsession of dwelling, the things that do work, the things we want, and disacknowledge, that's not a word, avoid all the things we don't want. I have a tendency to make up my own words.
That's cool.
Totally own it.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting because don't you think that we get into a place so often where we focus on right, wrong, good, or bad in a dwelling sense, then we imply, that thinking mentality. How do we manipulate to get what we want? And how do we stay as the victim, or how do we stay as the, successor? How do we navigate that? And it's really fascinating. We literally don't, even in religion, we don't pay attention to this huge aspect of contemplation.
Oh my God. Well, it becomes difficult to contemplate because the conscious mind that is contemplating is only 5% of our mind power, and the 95% of our subconscious mind is telling our conscious mind how to think about stuff constantly. So you've got only 5%, and it's being controlled and, being told how to think by the 95%. It takes a tremendous amount of awareness to be able to really use our heads in contemplation.
Well, and I think that's one of the biggest gifts we get, right? The opportunity is to recognize that we do act out of that, confusion more than clarity.
Yeah.
And we assume before we ask questions to know, we live in a world of, instant gratification, immediate response, immediate reaction. And so how do we, that whole, how do we survive that?
Yeah, so, I hope they have some seriously awesome mediators working in Illinois as this law comes into existence. Like, they are going to have some seriously awesome mediators, because that sounds...
it's a big can of worms. I mean, I was like, when I read that, I was like, I see the point. I see the value. I really, really do.
Absolutely.
But I'm not sure that's the right approach.
Yeah, did we think this through?
Did we really? And it's funny because there are a lot of beautiful things that go on in law. I am not, I do see the value of that, and I'm not belittling any of the intention behind it. But it is fascinating how manipulative the law is. It's all interpretation, and it's subjective. So it's really hard, and we have to trust. It's really interesting, right?
Yeah, totally. I'm just thinking how that relates. That relates to our families too, right? We have to trust. So I think so much of that is just going around everywhere. Like, there's a lot of fear going around. And, we've been talking about this polarity and talking about not making things good or bad, right or wrong, and contemplating. And I think this can be extrapolated to a lot of different areas in our lives, really.
Absolutely.
Right? Even what's going on outside of ourselves, or things that we don't think, we're connected to. If it is true that we are all connected, then, how can we be more contemplative in our own lives and really, look at this new perspective rather than trying to control.
I agree. Do you remember that commercial when you were a kid? Because I don't watch TV that much, although lately I've been on a rule, so I don't know. Maybe I'm watching more than I really want to own. Do you remember the commercial where somebody would smile at somebody, and then the good deed would go to the next person? They would either open the door for someone else.
No.
Or opening the door, then the next person helped the other person get their groceries out of the car or put them in the car. It was such a cool message, because the truth is we are all connected in ways that we don't even realize. It is the smile on your face that can make someone's day change. And it's the intention and the alignment with living in integrity and being fully intentional with everything in life. You walk out the door, if you walk out the door in a grumpy mood, odds are you're going to be spreading the negativity versus a positive experience for yourself, and it's going to be mirrored back, right? You get that smack in the face. And I think a lot of people think, well, geez, it was a bad day. It wasn't a bad day. You made it a bad day. But I think that there's a lot to what you're saying about how we do. We're all gridded together and how we affect each other. And that law in Illinois does affect us. It really does.
It does. It affects everybody. Yep. It affects everybody. And having this tremendous amount of trust, like you were saying, clients of mine will definitely get on a kick and be like, that law in Illinois, blah, blah, blah. And, I think that it's really important to talk about it, and it's really important to contemplate it. It's really important to have these discussions about it, and also trusting that whatever is happening over there in Illinois with this law, and having intentionality. I'm going to have intentionality that it's in the highest good of everybody that this is happening, and let's talk about it. Right? It's not an either or. I'm not going to put my head in the sand. We're going to talk about it. We're going to contemplate. We're going to watch, and I'm also going to have trust.
Right. Right. Yes. The surrender aspect, right?
Yeah.
And not many people are really good at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we're so invested. Okay, well, I have an intention. This is what I want it to look like. This is how I want it to be. And then we get there and you're like, yeah, it's not exactly what I thought. It is interesting. I think a lot of us live a life of, trying to like control. I mean, isn't that what we were taught in school? You do something, cause and effect, you're going to have a result. Lack of intention, you have a result. Gotta let go of those things.
Yeah, totally.
So much wisdom and yet so ignorant all at the same time, right? It's so slippery.
Yeah. This is something back to parenting that I tell my kids all the time when they come back and they've had a hard day or they've had difficult interactions with somebody. I love to just bring up everybody's doing the best they can.
Oh, yeah.
Even if yesterday, one of my kids was griping about something that was happening with their dad, and then they very eloquently put like a little jab in, "Dad thinks this or that about you," to me. And my response
I love it when they do that.
Yeah, it was like, where did that come from?
Why are you directing that at me?
Exactly. What was that arrow? And my response, as it usually is everybody's doing the best they can.
Good. Yeah.
And I would like to believe that about the world. Because even if people seem like they're not doing the best they can, then they're coming from fear, and they're doing the best that they can when they're coming from fear, because it's hard to be coming from fear. So.
Absolutely. That's 100% accurate. It's not intentional, but it definitely has ignorant consequences. Like you do something, maybe, you forget to, this is funny. I was driving one day with somebody in my car and I actually passed where I was supposed to go and I was taking them home. I was like, oh, I guess you're going out with me. I got to turn around. It's true, consequences, right?
Yeah.
I look stupid. What the heck? You just recognize that, you have these moments where you're just kind of not really present, but you're present, and I think that, sometimes they'll say things, do things, and somebody else will make up a story. You didn't think about me. You didn't care about me or whatever. And It's not true. You were just already in the next thing. And I think a lot of the times assumptions are made and, it's like before you know it, you're in this belief that something or someone said something about you and it may not be true. It's funny. My daughter had an issue the other day. She came to me full of tears and I was like, what's going on? She's like, I got a text message from somebody, and I'm not going to go into the whole details of it, but she was like, I can't believe, that they sent me this message. And I said, well, it just means the guy's still thinking about you. And it was a bad, mean, bullying, awful message. And it lasted it was a video. So it lasted forever. And I was like, oh my gosh, just delete this thing. Turn it off. But she just was so sad that here she's trying to respect herself, but it hurts somebody. And, you really start to recognize that even though you're holding a boundary, it's the right thing to do, you're going to get consequences for those actions. And it's not necessarily bad. It's not consequences like you did something wrong.
Right.
It's just a reaction to what somebody's attachment was. And so I said, sweetie, the cool thing is that you're precious enough that someone wanted to be with you, but you recognized for the better of both of you, it was not a safe place. And he's just really acting out in resentment of that. And it's okay that he does it. Just block him.
Yeah.
Don't let it affect your day. Let him do it, but don't let it affect your day. She's like, you're right. I don't really have to let him bother me. I'm like, you're right. So it's kind of a cool thing. She's so cute because she and I are actually doing, we're doing a cartoon together or animation together, storytelling through animation. She's an animation artist.
Oh, neat.
And so we're using my stories. A lot of the things I see constant in relationships and communication. And we're doing these little stories. And it's really been kind of interesting to hear her heal through the process.
Oh, wow.
So it is kind of neat. Yeah.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
So there's like these moments where you're like, you know, listening to them actually go click, 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 and all the pieces are falling into place. And you're like, right on, figure it out. You got
Yes.
it. But it's cool how other people's actions definitely affect our stable stance, right? I mean, we want to take ownership quite often of things that we're not accountable to. And I think in parenting, going back to that again, we definitely try to caretake, you know, those helicopter parents, we try to take ownership of their pain so that they don't have to feel it.
Yeah.
Well, you know what, like in my daughter's experience, if I had tried to say, well, you know, that would have definitely accelerated the process. She would have embedded that men are unsafe or made up some story about the experience. Instead, she talked it out and she could see, yeah, I could see that he's super sad and is resentful that I didn't allow him to have something he wanted. I can understand that. I've been there. I get that.
Yeah.
So now she can relate, you know, and she can release and send peace.
Yes. Understanding is love.
Right.
Gosh.
So it's kind of
what did you just say? I love that thought so much. Like understanding is so it is love. It's the precursor. It's so important.
It is. I just think it's so important. Also, you know, whenever I have confrontation, my big thing is say release and send peace. Somebody gave me that advice one time, and it was so amazing for my divorce to, like, instead of having his name, it said release and send peace.
Yeah.
So because I used to get anxiety every time I see his name. It's like, oh my gosh, prepare for battle.
Right.
And
right.
Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that feeling in me. And I recognized I was putting more energy of negativity in there. And I'm like, this can't be happening. This can't be healthy. So release and send peace not only gave me permission to be where I was, but it actually gave me a new space to celebrate where he was. Which was kind of cool.
So cool. So cool. That's, I mean, what you're talking about right there is really the nugget of what's allowed us to live in this very close proximity with our family, where, I mean, we could really be up each other's faces all the time, you know? But being able to really look at that for the other person too, like, that's super profound.
Yeah, it's a good thing to recognize. Forgiveness starts with yourself first, so you can forgive another.
Yep.
I think a lot of the times we hold on so hard, and so because we're not seen, understood, or respected, we make up a story. But the truth is we're not respecting ourselves by holding that boundary, right? So really the person who betrayed us and abandoned us was us.
Yep.
So when you really understand that, you know, you got to hold the mirror accountable, you can go, okay, yeah, I can see why you did that because I was totally not holding a boundary about myself. And I get it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a super compassionate way to live life. And, you know, what I'm hearing you say is not needing to be so defensive.
Yeah.
Right. Like when you can release and send peace, you don't have to be defensive. And if you're defensive, then you're not living life with an open heart. And it's, you're just guarding your fears.
Yeah. And you really do validate the belief that you're unlovable and you're unavailable, or it's really fascinating. I know there's protection. I always talk about boundaries. There's a protective layer that we need to have to keep ourselves safe, which is very important. But there's also that element that when you put up so much protective layer that you block life out, you don't let love in. So how do you do that, right? How do you navigate having that space for both? It's very easy. You think of your boundaries as not a brick wall, but a bubble. And you can allow things in when you want them in. And you can also say, you know what? I used to like that, but you know what's happening is it doesn't feel safe anymore. So I'm going to put you back over here. Not that I hate you. It's just not safe right now. And when actions over time validate confidence and clarity, then I'll let you back in. But it's a good thing to know that you have control over those things. It's not that you have to do it because you've always done it. So it's really fun.
The bubble is super great idea.
It is fun. I like it better because it gives me that chance that, you know, bubbles can bend and move and and they can get big and they can get small. You know, it just gives you a lot more sense of self and not victim, you know?
It's a much healthier way to see boundaries, because otherwise we're going to armor up, and that doesn't feel good in our bodies, and it leads to pain and disease. I mean, regardless of the airy-fairy stuff, it leads to pain and disease.
Yeah. Yeah. I always laugh because I'm always told, you know, I'm 46 now, and everyone's always like, you don't look like you're 46. I'm like, it's because I don't have, I don't take it personal. Maybe that's a sign. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just good genetics. Who knows? But, but I like to blame it on that. Not attachment. Less wrinkles.
Absolutely. My kids just asked me about that recently. They said those little lines around people's faces, how do they get there? And I was like, well, you know, when you don't let go of stuff, it shows in your face, and it's very heavy. And my kids get it, right?
The bag. Yeah, let go of the bag. They're causing sagging skin.
I said I prefer these laugh lines.
I love the laugh lines. I'm good. Smile lines are good. Let's keep those. No sagging skin. Thank you very much. No baggage.
No baggage. Exactly.
I think sagging skin's way worse than wrinkles. I'll take wrinkles every day. I call them lifelines. I love my lifelines.
Yes, lifelines, exactly. I found my first gray hair today.
Oh, I hate you. I've had gray hair since I was like 9.
I went and showed Brian, my husband. I'm like, look, I have a gray hair. And he goes, oh my God, look at that. And then he goes, wait, you have 2. Oh no, you have 3. I was like, thanks.
Thanks,
buddy.
Didn't need to know that much. Oh my God. No, Gray's old news.
Oh my goodness.
Thank God for hair color. Gotta love the highlights. I go in for my highlights regularly. Yeah, I'm probably not even, I have no idea what color I am anymore.
Oh man.
Oh, so bad. Growing old gracefully is a talent.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, this is super fun.
We'll have to keep doing this. Definitely. We were now talking about doing this on YouTube, not necessarily here. So what I'll do is if we go to YouTube, I'll just repost them here for everyone to see. But I would love for everyone to join us on YouTube. My channel is Tamara Blankenship. Well, that's my website. That's pretty funny. Tamara Blankenship, you can find me there. Do you have your YouTube you'd like to announce for everyone if you want to post them there?
Yeah, you know, we were talking yesterday about how I usually post on my company site, but I think I'm going to set one up for myself, Tamara, for conversations like this, because we're going to have more, and I'm having more as well. So that's really fun and super exciting. And if anybody's listening and they're, you know, thinking about, wow, I'd really love to hear about certain topics, post below and let us know. Let us know what you would love to hear about.
Yes, and I actually put a link in there to check out her book. I put a little Amazon link on there for you guys who want to check her out. Absolutely. And actually, what I'll do is I'll also put a link in for getting a hold of you. If you have an email you'd like them to contact, and I will set mine up there as well. Sweet. And thank you so much for joining me today. This is fun. I'm so glad we did this.
Oh, it's great. I can't wait for the next one. Awesome.
Sounds good. All right, sweetie. Have an awesome day.
Bye, you too.
Bye.